Okay, and you're live.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from the world. I'm Surabhi. I work as Media Innovation Lead at R&W Media, and I'm joining here live from our offices in the Koepel at Haarlem in the Netherlands. And with me, I have fellow panelists. We have Loes Loning from Rutgers, also based in the Netherlands, and Chrystine from Lebanon, who's also joining us and one of the featured media maker in our book launch today. Hopefully, we'll also have another colleague join us from Tanzania, depending on the internet connection, but I hope she can join us. So, as you know, it is the book launch of our digital coffee table book called Under Attack, Still We Rise, where we feature stories of women media makers from around the world who have faced and experienced tech-facilitated gender-based violence and have persisted and persevered in the face of TFGBV and are doing essential journalism and media work despite the online threats, attacks, and harassment that they face online in digital media spaces. We will get to the book a bit later, but I also want to highlight today's May 28th, which is also the International Day of Action for Women's Health. I think it's important that we recognize that TFGBV, or tech-facilitated gender-based violence, is also a public health issue. It has impacts on media makers, whether it's women, gender minorities, both physical and mental health. And so it's an important issue that we raise in the perspective of broader women's health ambit. And I also want to highlight that TFGBV is also an issue for media freedom or press freedom. When women, media makers, and gender minorities experience TFGBV, it means it also muzzles their voices, their experiences, and their ability to work and do good journalism for their communities and to put public interest issues out there. And so when women experience TFGBV, they're often censored or they self-censor themselves. Sometimes it might also lead to them leaving the media field owing to safety and security reasons. And that does mean that we lose very important voices and stakeholders from the media space and the online media space specifically. And that does mean that impacts media freedom globally, not just in specific regions, but around the world. And hence, this is our effort as R&W Media. We are an international digital media development organization working on supporting public interest in independent media around the world. We work on media viability, we work on information integrity, and as a cross-cutting issue on gender, we are working on tech-facilitated gender-based violence, but also to highlight again that TFGBV is also about media viability. It's also about information integrity. It's about how do you have women lead media outlets, independent media or public interest media. It's also about how can we keep our digital media spaces safe, inclusive, and reliable for everyone, including for women media makers. And so this book is our effort to highlight experiences and narratives on TFGBV from women media makers that we work with or who work in very sensitive regions around the world. And it's also an attempt to celebrate and recognize these experiences and the defiance and the fortitude these women show in the face of TFGBV. So we'll come back to the launch of the book in a few minutes. But first, I would like to actually introduce and have a brief discussion with our panelists that we have here today with us. And I want to start with Loes from Rutgers. And yeah, just to highlight, this book is also a collaborative effort between R&W Media, Masaruna, and Right Here, Right Now, too. And of course, Rutgers is our part of the coalition, leading the coalition on Right Here, Right Now, too, in the Netherlands. So Loes, thanks very much for joining us. Rutgers has also been doing important work on tech-facilitated gender-based violence with a recent report that's also been highlighted in the book we are launching today. So perhaps you can briefly share with our audience about Rutgers, the work you do, and the importance of the research that was developed on tech-facilitated gender-based violence.
Yes, thank you so much, Surabhi, and thank you for inviting me today at this important launch event. And I think it's really great that this coffee table book will spark and continue the conversation on TFGBV. It's a very important So I work as a researcher on sexual and gender-based violence at Rutgers, and I lead on our international TFGBV research. And we are an international center of expertise on sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence. We work in the Netherlands, but also with over 20 international partner organizations. And in the last few years, we have really seen the reality of TFGBV in the various countries that we work in. And we've tried to conduct research to really understand the nature of this type of violence, who is really at risk, and what can we do to combat TFGBV. So I'm happy to share some of our findings and experiences today.
Thank you, Luz. And I think before I move to the findings, I wanted to just highlight for everyone who's watching us live, what is tech-facilitated gender-based violence? It is a broad category and often called cyber violence or online violence, but essentially it includes a range of different forms of violence, whether sexual, physical, mental, psychological, economical as well. And that can include stalking, doxing, impersonation, including various other forms of violence. As I mentioned before, it is a critical public health issue, especially in digital media spaces. And so now, Luz, over to you in terms of what were the significant findings in your research that came across on TFGBV?
Yes, I actually think that what you mentioned in terms of the definition of TFGBV, one of the findings is really that TFGBV is not just an online issue, and really this continuum of online and offline violence, and that violence does not necessarily start with technology, but can also existing violence or existing gender-based violence is amplified through technology, and violence that starts online then also moves offline. And so it's this type of cycle, and this artificial idea that we used to have about the offline world and the real world is becoming more and more blurred, and this type of violence is real. And I think that we are starting to recognize that, but TFGBV is not yet recognized as a legitimate form of gender-based violence in all spaces and by all actors. So that is something that we found, and also that for women and young girls who are experiencing TFGBV, it's sometimes difficult to also recognize this as a legitimate harm that's done to them, and that it shouldn't be brushed off, and that we all have to take it seriously. Some of the findings, it's interesting. So we did a study. It's called Decoding TFGBV. You can find it on the Rutgers website if any of the listeners want to read more about it. It's a cross-country study across 7 countries. So the countries that participated were Rwanda, Uganda, South Africa, Indonesia, Morocco, Lebanon, and Jordan. And so the findings are across settings, but also across continents. And actually what we found is that that there's really these trends that exist across all settings. So technology doesn't know any borders, right? So the findings also really show the nature of technology, and that the nature of TFGBV really applies across settings. I think one of the things to highlight is that the at-risk groups that we found across all settings are definitely young people, because of the role that technology plays also as a sexual and reproductive health organizations in accessing information on sexual and reproductive health, the increase that we see on misinformation and disinformation, the role that the digital world plays in young people's romantic relationships, increasingly facing issues such as unwanted sexting or the non-consensual sharing of images. But also one of the at-risk groups that we found were women in the public eye, such as female journalists, women in media, but also female politicians or women's rights defenders and activists. And because of the nature of what we do, that's the women who play a role in activism for women's rights, they're really targeted online. And that's why the impacts of TFGBV are very serious and very severe on an individual level, but also at a societal level. And that's something that's really important, especially when looking at media and women being silenced, especially women speaking up in already male-dominated fields. And so TFGBV is really a setback to efforts to eliminate gender inequality.
Right. Yeah, thanks so much, Lucia. Those are very pertinent findings. I think also, again, relevant to the media work and media makers that we are talking about today. Before I move to the action points, I will like to, I think, move to Winfrida because the internet is a bit unstable in where she is joining us from. Winfrida, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Glad we still have you online. Yeah, I mean, you are a journalist, broadcaster, writer in Tanzania, and maybe you can talk a bit about what does your work in media entail in everyday work, and what was your motivation to share your story in the coffee table book?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Winfrida Kabara. I am a journalist from here in Tanzania, and I'm a content director based in Kigoma, Tanzania. I have been working in the media industry for over 7 years, focusing on storytelling that profits um, especially women and the children. But I want to say a lot of things. I wish to say a lot of things here, but according to my time, even my network is not good. I wanted to apologize on that.
Don't worry, go ahead. We can still hear you, so you're all okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I remember last time I saw some questions on my emails, which is guided to, I think, to discuss it about it today. And what I want to say here, I can start with the question that what was my motivation to share my story on the TFGBV? Is it?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. What motivated me was the silence. So many women in the media go through online abuse and harassment, but don't talk about it, either because of fear, shame, or because they think it is part of the job. I wanted to break that silence by sharing my story, and I hope to show that this is not normal, as I know you know too, and shouldn't be accepted at the cost of being visible or outspoken. I also wanted other women to feel seen, to know they are not alone. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So what had been the impact of TFGBV on my work as a media maker? The impact has been both professional and personal. Professional, there were moments I hesitated to publish certain stories or appear on camera simply because of the backlash I anticipated. But personally, it affected my confidence and sometimes made me withdraw from online spaces, which are actually important platforms for our work. But I have also grown strong. I have learned how to protect myself better and to speak out, not just for myself, but for others. So um, I want to bring here my message that your voice matters and you deserve to do your work without fear. Speak up, support each other, and don't internalize the abuse. Also, let us hold our institutions, accountable media houses needed to more to protect their staff online, just as the word in the field, and to those experiencing TFGBV, it is not your faculty. You are not alone, and there is a strength in solidarity. Thank you so much. Let me end up here.
Thank you so much, Winfrida. I think you've raised so many critical points and also corroborates why we needed this book in the first place. So thank you so much. And I'm glad we had you online here while the internet was still working. And this allows me to then move on to Chrystine, who is a journalist and a podcaster based in the Lebanon. And Chrystine, I will have the same question for you as for Winfrida. You're one of the featured media maker in our book. What was your motivation to share your story, and what has the impact been like on your work, both professionally and personally?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I relate with all of the points that were mentioned so far. Well, I think the motivation for me comes from different angles, as you said, both personal and professional. When I actually contributed to this book, I was working with Rasif 22, a regional media outlet that covers different human rights and social justice topics. And my work was to actually manage a project on sexual and reproductive rights and health for 2.5 years. And the scope was Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq. And covering SRHR in these countries is very critical, especially in the past 3 years. I am from Beirut, from Lebanon myself, and I was doing that work while the war was happening as well inside Lebanon, and as we witness also what's happening right now in Palestine. So I think this adds another layer of challenge on how we tackle SRHR and why we talk about it. And I think I like to always think about SRHR in two different ways. First of all, of course, you have the social censorship, where you have to truly redefine the way you approach SRHR in our part of the world, because in our part of the world, unfortunately, when you have multiple crises happening that are truly overwhelming, the public can really in a way, put SRHR as something secondary. It's not a priority for our topics. However, it is a priority, and it does intersect with everything that is happening. So there is this challenge of how can I make this relatable to the public? And secondly, of course, there's the abuse that comes with the wars that happen with where people are directly affected and impacted on that front. So within these barriers, you will find online gender-based violence on activists and women who try to speak about SRHR, but also you will find the offline one. And I like also what Loes was saying, that the offline and the online are not really so different. In reality, they are very intertwined and connected. So yeah, I wanted to share not my personal experience, because I personally have been in the behind the scenes in a way when I was doing this project. However, there were many challenges in the way we protect the journalists we work with, the way we make sure they're anonymous, they're safe, but also make them feel that this is a topic of priority, especially when they are affected themselves as journalists. But now, when I work on my podcast, which is also a personal initiative and a project that I'm working on, I also cover SRHR as part of the project, and I am in a way more on the front line because I am the host of the show, and we try to intersect SRHR with the war, with the economic and political crisis in the country, in Lebanon. So that puts me in a different spot, honestly, and it makes me feel that we always have to find innovative and creative ways to try to talk about SRHR in a way that is sensitive and relatable enough. So yeah, I felt like it's a great opportunity to talk about SRHR in a context that is a bit different, because I truly believe when we tackle this topic, we really need to look back at how each country and each community sees it and deals with it on a daily basis.
And maybe one follow-up question for you, Chrystine, would be, because Loes mentioned it as well, but does working on SRHR put more specific risk in terms of facing tech-facilitated gender-based violence? Like, does it open you more just because you're talking about a very sensitive topic? And also, if you can maybe share examples of what kind of violence did you or threats did you encounter in the online space when you were talking about SRHR?
Yeah, of course. As you both said before, of course, when there's a woman in the front line, yeah, either political or media front line, there is online gender-based violence. But when you're talking about SRHR, it's another level of GBV. And I think some examples that I've encountered where, of course, the hate speech that you see or anticipate online. For example, the journalists that have worked with us on several topics have been very careful and cautious because sometimes when we used to publish anything related to SRHR, we used to get hate speech on the platform itself. And to avoid that, we used to mitigate many measures and try to put some articles in anonymous names or try to twist the conversation towards the platform and not the person who wrote this article or who wrote this piece. So that's first, but of course, I've seen stories where things go, of course, further, but this is not something that happened with me personally. In Lebanon, there's a very famous SRHR coach and doctor. She's a sexologist. She always shares information online, but I'm always observing as well how much hate speech she gets and receives. And this also goes to the personal level, not only the professional level of her life. So yeah, this is something that you can experience firsthand. It hasn't happened to me yet, but that's only because we try to be very creative in the way we talk about SRHR. It's become our strongest, yeah, great. But that's as well, right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Winfrida.
Addition.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I want to add there something. I think collective voices are powerful. There is power in solidarity, what I believe. Journalists is facing TFOGBV need safe spaces to connect, share experiences, and they organize network both national and global can be lifeline and a force of change. But another thing, it can be the importance of staying visible. Online abuse is often intended to silence and push women journalists out of public spaces. But our presences matter, our voices matter. We must not let fear win. Speaking up, even when it is hard, is an act of resistance, and it inspires others to do the same. I think. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. I think it.
Okay. Thanks, Winfrida. Yeah, very, very, very important points. And I also wanted to flag something we don't consider. I think, Chrystine, and your example was very insightful. Like, for women media makers who are working on sensitive topics, and this is not just relegated to SRHR, but also maybe politics or other topics that might be quite sensitive or taboo in nature, even editorial decisions are made based on what can keep journalists or media makers safe, right? And I think we often don't think about that level of consideration that has to go in order to keep journalists and media makers safe. So I really value that example that you shared, that, yeah, editorial decision-making also happens and the creativity that it allows, but at the sake of a very important issue that we are trying to address. I also see we have Jacque joining us now, who is another media maker featured in our book. Welcome, Jacque. I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay. But you're based out of the Philippines, but I understand you're in the Netherlands at the moment.
I'm back in the Philippines. I'm based here in the Philippines. It's Jacque Manabat.
Oh,
So
Jackie.
I'm an independent journalist and a content creator. I just retired from the traditional media over a year ago. Now I've put up my own studio. I'm teaching content creators, newsrooms, and journalists how to dive into this new media, digital content creation. So that's me.
Thank you.
And I'm
Thanks for
also part
joining
of the
us.
I'm also part of a women empowerment group for journalists here.
That's amazing. And Winfrida, it's great to actually see you on video now. But Jackie, I think I wanted to ask you the same question I've asked to Chrystine and Winfrida, which is what was your motivation to share the story in the book that we are launching today?
Well, you see, journalists, we're not trained to put the spotlight on us. We are trained to speak about the stories of others, but never of ours. So when I was in the traditional media, there's a lot of stereotype that journalists should be strong. We are models, role models like that. And again, we're not used to having the spotlight on us. But um, well, this is a safe space. I experienced a sexual harassment incident in the workplace. And at first I was afraid to speak about it because again, we're not used to telling our stories as journalists. And then I realized it's not just me who is a victim. So eventually I filed a case, and then um, former reporters, women reporters, are thanking me for stepping up and speaking up about it. So that's when I realized that if one would share their story, others would follow. And it's time that journalists also acknowledge our weaknesses so that we will be strong for others, so that we will pave the way for future or the young journalists to speak up about this uncomfortable story to tell. But for yeah, so we're used to speaking for the other people, talking about injustices, whilst in our own industry, there's a lot of it that's happening. So I was um, inspired to speak about it or join the movement for journalists because I know how powerful one voice could be.
And thank you so much, Jackie. And we are so grateful that you actually, yeah, I hate to say brave enough, but like, yeah, it does take courage and fortitude to share your story with so many different people. If I can ask also, what impact did it have on your work as a journalist? If you want to share, because we were talking about also the blurring of these boundaries of online versus offline. That's not the case anymore, right? It's not a binary. So what happens online also impacts us in our offline spaces.
Yes, it does. So when a former president of ours was elected, and he was openly, doing this, telling all these misogynistic remarks against women, openly saying that raping is fine, and it did have an impact on our career as women journalists because I felt that other higher officials or officials would seem to see these misogynistic remarks as normal. Well, it shouldn't be. So we have to be used to it so we'll get the story. You see, so there's the impact. Whenever I go to press conferences and I hear these misogynistic remarks, I brush it off. I brush it off. But at night, you get to think, you rewind the situation, and it's not okay. That shouldn't be the norm. Even for future journalists, women journalists, that shouldn't be the norm. So I'm also a content creator, and there's a study that women content creators are objectified. So whenever I put out a content that's explaining the news, and if it wouldn't be favorable to their beliefs, this cognitive bias, they attack me not on the story. They bash me not because of the story, but with how I look, and because I'm a woman. So those were the online and offline attacks because I'm a woman, you know? So yeah, so it has an impact to me, but again, one voice, just speaking up, it really made the difference in my life, because speaking up would also mean career suicide here in the Philippines. Because if a woman stands her ground and speaks up about it, if you look at the ownerships of networks, not only in the Philippines, but in Southeast Asia, it's male dominated. I mean, who would hire a woman journalist who speaks up or who stands his ground? We could be, um, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean. Yeah.
No, I mean, there are so many different strands that you have highlighted here that we could have maybe hours long discussion about. But keeping in mind the time, and thanks again, Jackie, for sharing also not just the personal aspects, but also the systemic aspects of what reinforces and encourages violence and how do we fight those, which takes me back to Loes and the research that was done by Rutgers. What were some action points that came, emerged from the research that you think are pertinent to also the stories that all three of our panelists have shared?
Yes, thanks so much. I actually took some notes because what was just said really ties into some of the findings, and it's beautiful to hear that really illustrated. And as Winfrida said, there's really power in collective voices, but also these voices to really illustrate some of the findings in our report. So, for example, and just tying into what Jackie said, one of the findings, of course, is that TFGBV as a root cause has, harmful gender norms and a patriarchal society. And these ideas are amplified, of course, in online spaces. So definitely in combating TFGBV, we have to increase our efforts for gender equality. And then tying into what Chrystine said, there's still too little known about TFGBV and the different forms it takes, and technology is evolving at such a rapid pace that it's difficult to keep up with the new forms such as, AI. How do new forms of harm, emerge through AI, or the use of deep fakes and all these new, more new forms. So we really have to also put efforts into understanding TFGBV and continuing research efforts. And also it's globally recognized that there's really a gap in data from humanitarian and crisis settings. So I think Chrystine's work is very important in highlighting that. And also we really have to advocate for comprehensive legislation at the national level, but also at the global level. So there's definitely solidarity in voices, but also using these voices for advocacy. And what we found in our study is really that new cybersecurity laws are implemented in different countries, but they often conflict with existing gender-based violence laws, for example. And actually, women and girls can be victimized under cybersecurity laws, such as anti-pornography laws, where a victim of non-consensual image sharing can actually be charged for spreading pornography. So these inconsistencies need to be revised. And the gendered nature really, also what Jackie said, the gendered nature of abuse needs to be incorporated in response mechanisms. So what we also see with other women in the public eye, such as female politicians, and the way that TFGBV is sort of harnessed to discredit women differs from the online harassment that men, for example, face. So really taking into the gendered nature, taking into account the gender nature, why can I not speak? The gendered nature of abuse And then lastly, also really bringing together different actors across sectors in order to combat TFGBV, such as SRHR professionals, GBV professionals, women in media, or the media landscape. And in doing so, centering the voices of survivors in conversations with governments, with international institutions, with researchers, and also recognizing that it's not the responsibility of women and girls to keep ourselves safe. Of course, we do what we must do, but it is not a responsibility that should be put on us in order to solve this problem. And I think that's really important, and also shows through this conversation today.
Thank you, Loes. And I think before we finally move to the launch of the book, maybe one, because I think Winfrida has to leave, but yeah, if there's any one last message that you would like to give people who have joined us on this live stream, Chrystine, Jacque, and Winfrida, as media makers who are doing the work at the front lines, while also confronting the daily threat of violence. What would be your message to our viewers, listeners, but also people as consumers of news and media more broadly? So maybe I can begin with Winfrida, if you're still there, if you'd like to share a message. Okay, I'm not sure if Winfrida is there. No. Or maybe she'll come back, or Chrystine, maybe we can go to you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's not one particular message, but I think what we're doing here is very interesting, and it's the start of what I'm trying to say mainly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Winfrida is back, I
Can you
think.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Sorry. Yeah, go
No,
ahead,
thank you
Winfrida,
so
and then
much.
we'll
Go
come
ahead.
back to you, Chrystine. Yeah, sorry.
No. I want to say thank you so much for this opportunity and for the powerful conversation today as we move forward. And I would like to suggest that I think I have said your read to create a WhatsApp group just for us contributors and media makers, where we can stay connected, support each other, and continue pushing this conversation beyond the event. Our voices are stronger together. I repeat, our voices are stronger together, and we can keep raising awarenesses about TFGBV in a more coordinated way. Let us not stop here. Let us keep the momentum going. Thank you so much. I love them all, and I would like you to welcome you to come here in Tanzania, or I can say Africa.
Thank you so much,
Welcome.
Winfrida. Thank you a lot.
Thank
And I
you.
think it's a great way to plug our Vine community. So at RNW Media, we host the Vine community, which is a community of over 10,000 journalists, media makers from around the world. And we engage in discussions, in collaborative activities. So I would really welcome all of the fellow panelists to join in as well, but anyone who's watching and is a media maker and is interested in talking about these intersecting issues with media and media viability, safety, please do join us. You can find more information on our website at RNW Media. Chrystine, back to you.
Yeah. So I was saying that I'm not gonna put it out there like this message of speaking up, because I think there's a lot more to be done before asking women to speak up. There's a lot of accountability to be called for from tech companies, from governments, from organizations that we work at, especially as journalists. And I relate a lot to what Jacque was saying, especially in Lebanon, for example. The male domination in the media sector is incredibly overwhelming, especially in the traditional scene. So I would say, if I were to send a message to media makers, it would be not to shy away from talking about SRHR just because the context doesn't really accept it right now, or the audience or the public doesn't really relate to it right now. I think there's a lot of ways for us to get creative and to speak with each other on relevancy and an ability to find innovative ways to engage with the youth, to speak about SRHR. And yeah, just simply the simple acts of solidarity are really important, because feeling safe or asking someone to feel safe is not easy unless you have great platforms and a civil society that really understands what solidarity means in terms of sharing insights, networks, and opportunities mainly. So yeah, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I think this is a great, well-rounded perspective on things. So yeah, just wanted to thank everyone for that.
Thank you, Chrystine. Jacque, and last but not the least, Loes, I'll also come back to you for a message you have to different stakeholders. But Jacque, go ahead. I think you're muted.
Right. I think empowering women isn't merely about inclusion, or shouldn't just be an ethical consideration. Listening to all of you here, I feel that it is a journalistic imperative. While we talk about social injustices, while we write about this, we can't even protect ourselves. So this book, I am excited about it because it's one way of amplifying voices that challenge the status quo, the norm that shouldn't be, as I've mentioned a while ago. So I am grateful that this is a proactive commitment to dismantle what I believe is a systemic fault. There's a systemic barrier. So with this book, and while we this conversation that we are continuing, we are, I hope, ensuring that the perspectives of women journalists are not just acknowledged, but actively shape the narratives that inform our society. You see, this isn't just about us women journalists, but it's women and the system in general. So it is important to speak up, to feel that we could report without fear, even it's about social injustice about ourselves. It's critical because unequivocally, if you change nothing, nothing will change. So we have to continue changing something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacque. And finally, Loes, over to you.
Yeah, just to recognize what Chrystine and Jacque have said, I think as a message to civil society, to those in government, really bringing tech sectors involved in this. I think really this key issue of this online offline continuum is important to recognize by all actors involved, because we have to avoid a certain shifting in responsibility or avoiding responsibility between reporting something on an online platform and reporting something, for example, to law enforcement about physical violence, because they are so interlinked. So really what we have to do is create safe spaces for women and girls to, first of all, recognize that what is happening to them is a legitimate form of violence, and it's okay to feel however you feel about it, and that you can report it if you want. But then once reported, it has to be taken seriously and not brushed off. And that is why we need stronger legislation to really at all levels take this issue much more serious, and so that also perpetrators can be held to account.
Thank you so much, Loes. And I think you wrapped it up really well in terms of accountability and action that needs to be taken at various different levels. And now I really want to introduce the book itself. Of course, we're calling it the Digital Coffee Table Book. So you can find a link on our website, on LinkedIn, and our social media channels. But as you will see, it's called Under Attack, Still We Rise, and very apt for the stories that we heard today of courage and resilience in face of TFGBV. And as you can see, you'll find a bit more context about the book itself and the rationale behind it. And then we have beautiful illustrations and quotations from different media makers who have contributed to the book. And we have 11 women media makers who have contributed to this book, specifically including Chrystine, Jacque, and Winfrida. So do take a look. You'll find some quotes and then also more in-depth stories of their experiences. So I hope you will check it out, and I hope you will also make sure to engage with the stories that all our panelists have shared and action points that we need to take forward in this continuous struggle to confront TFGBV and normalize talking about it so then we can also take action collectively. But that's it from me, from Kupal. It's time to sign off, and thank you again to all our panelists. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.